Hi, everybody. It's Tony Nevitt, and welcome to our bi-monthly Audience Marketing Council meeting. I hope everybody is doing well and getting ready for Thanksgiving. I'm sure we're all looking forward to a 4-day weekend. I hope you're all ready to enjoy that. So to kick off today's meeting, we've got a really interesting subject here on lead scoring. It was one of the items that the council thought would be interesting to shed some additional light on. There's a lot of talk, confusion, interest in this topic. What is it? How do we use it? Why is it important for me to be thinking about if I'm not already doing it? And if I am doing it, how perhaps can I do it more effectively? This is our second in our 3 topics that we've kicked off our new council year with. In our September meeting, we did a meeting on account-based marketing. There was a lot of interest in that, and Matt put that information up on the SIIA Connectiv archive, so you can go in there and if that's of interest to you, you can go and look at what we did on that back in September. Today's topic is going to be lead scoring, and in January we're looking for some additional topics to tackle. One of them was user experience, and so I think that may be the topic that we tackle for our January meeting. So we've got a great session lined up here, and I don't want to take that much more time, but want to turn it over to Lorna Fenimore along with Jill Newman from OMITA. Lorna is with Multipub. Lorna has put together a great panel for us today. And so that said, Lorna, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I also want to welcome Tom Pines from Real Magnet, Kevin Novak from 2040 Digital, and Jacob Perrick from Business Valuation Resources, who are going to be our speakers today. So Lorna, take it away.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about this topic. I know everyone is very interested in it. Jill Newman and I, Jill from OMITA, and I work together with several of you and members of the committee to kind of put together some of the hot topics and things to talk about regarding this topic. And we have asked Tom and Kevin and Jacob to share with us their knowledge and experience. And so I'm first going to introduce Tom Pines. He's going to kick it off for us. Tom is the CEO and co-founder of Real Magnet, a leading marketing automation platform. Real Magnet was founded in 2000 and now counts more than 1,000 organizations as customers, including publishers, corporations, trade associations, universities, and hospitality firms. Prior to Real Magnet, Tom worked as a political communication strategist for Brazil Sawyer Miller and CLS Communications, and is a foreign policy aide to 2 members of Congress. In 2012, he was elected to the Board of Specialized Information Publishers Association Board of Directors. Tom completed his undergraduate work at Tulane and received his law degree from American University. And Tom, take it away.
Thank you, Lorna, and good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction, and I think that it's very interesting to talk on this topic, and I hope that everybody sort of gets good information out of this. So, I mean, everybody on the phone knows that the marketing game has changed dramatically in the last 3, 5, 7 years. A large part of that is we've gone from sort of batch and blast all the way now to a much more sophisticated way of doing things. And I think the main driver of that is just the absolute flood of emails that are now being sent. I just did a quick Google search and found that on a daily basis there are 250 billion emails being sent for a total on an annual basis of 74 trillion emails. So that's a huge amount, and people, I'm sure you all are the same way, everybody is sort of overwhelmed by that. So now we're at a point in time, and I'm sure everybody knows this, where it's all about relevancy, segmentation, targeting. That's sort of table stakes for succeeding in marketing. And when you are putting your programs together, you have to just keep in mind that the competition for inbox attention isn't just with your competitors. You're competing against some of the biggest brands in the world, Starbucks, Netflix, Amazon, etc., who have huge marketing departments, really sophisticated programs. So it just puts more of an emphasis on the fact that you have to be more targeted, segmented in what you're doing. So next. Email is really sort of evolving into a new phase. So again, we started with spray and pray back in 2000. You could load up your 100,000 emails, send them out. In the early days, there weren't even spam filters. 100% delivery. You're getting great metrics. Everything's fine. But then, because of the just vast volume of emails, things started to change, and it got more to where we're going towards now, which is that segmentation and targeting, and that brought on dynamic content, segmentation, and I think, for at least where I think this market is, we're sort of right in between that second and third circle there, where we are going from just segmentation dynamic to full-blown marketing automation. The next technology wave that's coming is going to be predictive, where there are going to be technologies out there that will hook into marketing automation systems, and it will look at all of the data that your organization sends, put some super smart algorithms on there, and start making recommendations to you, such as, hey, it's Tuesday and you're doing a webinar, therefore we suggest you put in these words in the subject line. Or, when you are sending out your webinar promotion, it's been much more effective when you've had the link in the upper left corner rather than in the bottom right corner. So that's a technology that's coming down the road, really exciting. A lot of promise. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors right now, but eventually that technology is going to develop and help marketers out. Next, please. So, again, it's all about targeting and relevant information. So segmentation is a foundational piece of that targeting. Now, segmentation is really important, and it can tell you what people are interested in, but it doesn't tell you how much they're interested in that topic. And that's where lead scoring comes in. Now, I know that there are probably people out there, maybe people out there who are trying to do lead scoring in a manual fashion. I wish you good luck with that. It's got to be very challenging. Can it be done? Probably can be done, but I think you're much better off with a marketing automation platform or a program that's specifically for lead scoring. So once you start talking about marketing automation, you can get overwhelmed very easily, and that's the purpose of that image there is, you have to think of it like, how do you eat the elephant? And you eat the elephant one bite at a time. So actually, lead scoring is actually a really discrete sort of thing that you can do with marketing automation as a way to start dipping your toe in and start easing your way into it. So I think that's very sort of relevant to what we're talking about today. Next, please. So I wanted to show you all just an idea of what lead scoring looks like in a marketing automation application. I mean, this is one from Real Magnet, but all the other competitors that are worth their metal have lead scoring components, and everybody does it in different ways, but fundamentally we're trying to get at the same thing. So what you see here is in that number 2 section, you can basically select as many items as you want to give scores to, and you put a score there. And then if you look at the bottom where it says leads, and you can see how that's underlined, covered by this pop-in is something where you can click to get this pop-in to show up. And from this, you can select any of these items to score. So you can score opens, you can score clicks, you can score when somebody submits a survey or registers for an event, when they visit a web page. So many, many things that you can score in the marketing automation application. Now, the next piece of it, it's not just scoring individual interactions, because really the main idea is that once somebody does a certain amount of things, we're going to want to take action. Next, please. So this gives you that second part of marketing of the lead scoring, where you're actually going to create a threshold. And that threshold obviously has to be relative to your scoring system for lead scoring. But with the threshold also, there are specific actions that you can take once a threshold is hit. So here you can see that When a threshold of 100 is hit, this person can be added to a group. They can be given a tag. We could send that person a message. We can send an internal notification so that our sales team or marketing team knows that that threshold has been hit, or you can set a field value in that recipient's record. So again, just to provide a little context for what lead scoring looks like practically in a web application. Next, please. So I think the most important thing that you need to think about, one of the most important things to think about is when you're undertaking this lead scoring initiative, you have data in many different places throughout your organization. Excuse me. And in those databases, in that data, there are interactions that you're going to want included in that lead score. So one of the big challenges is marshaling all of those different data sources, getting them in one place, and determining how they're going to be lead scored. So these are just a couple of the places where publishers are going to look, and I know there are other systems that you all have, but this is just an example. So obviously we just showed you some of the interactions that exist in the marketing automation platform, interactions that you have in your fulfillment system or your DMP system, call centers, even your event management platforms. There's a lot of actionable data in there that you're going to want included in that lead score, so it's important to identify it, marshal it, and then get it all in one place so it can be scored. And that underscores this last point on this slide, which is that you can do marketing automation without integrations, and it would work pretty well, but it's going to work much better having those integrations. There's a lot of data flow. I think lead scoring is just one example of how important it is to have data coming in and out of that system from different places. So again, in the spirit of eating one bite at a time, though, you can start marketing automation without those, and you can do certain things without those integrations. That's something that needs to be done down the road, but if you wait for the 10 integrations to happen before you start your marketing automation program, you're never going to get it off the ground. Next, please. So when we advise our customers on lead scoring campaigns, we recommend that they take a multiple campaign approach. So when they first start, we tell them, it's a good idea to just do a global lead scoring campaign. Just turn on a lead scoring campaign, and for all of time, just score people on all the different interactions. You can have that ongoing throughout time. But you're also, in certain instances, going to want to do lead scoring by campaigns or by initiatives. So that's very important. And when you are doing your due diligence on a marketing automation platform, it's a very important question to ask, because not every marketing automation platform will allow you to do multiple campaigns. So that's an important one to ask. And this is a little bit off the subject, but I want to raise it anyway. When you're doing your due diligence, you should also ask about sending limits that those vendors have on sending emails, because the spam police have gotten very tough as of late, and though there are some of the vendors put restrictions on the amount of volume that you can send. I mean, I think almost everyone does. Some of them are pretty low, and I think that's what you really need to look out to. So there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done, but those are two that you may not think of that I would definitely encourage you to ask. Next, please. So just to create a framework for model of how you can start your scoring scheme, what we do is we try to make it really simple for our customers. So we say, just for starters, compile a list of all of the interactions that you would want included in your lead score. Rank them in importance all the way from top to bottom and get them all in one list, and then take the middle item and give it a score. I chose 15 for the purposes of our exercise today. There are other, it's a random number, but you just need to be able to have scores that will go above that and scores that will go below that. So just get them all sort of listed out there, rank them, go to the middle, give it a score, and just start from there. And for most of our customers, that's enough. They will go through that exercise, and they will complete the whole scheme, and it works perfectly. For others, it's just a point of departure, because everybody's organization is obviously different. They're going to assign different importance, different values to different interactions. but this is just a good, solid way to get started. Next, please. So I apologize for this. This one was, they were all supposed to be animated, but I think because of the webcast, it's not animated, so we're going to have to look at these things all at once. So it's a lot to look at, but let's go through it. So the first thing that we show, we actually have this model, and we give this out and work with our publishing customers to get that lead scoring process started. So we start with a high-end product purchase, we assign 40 points. And then for a low-end product purchase, we're going to assign 30. Just immediately off the bat, when you start with those, you're already going to run into some serious nuance because nobody has just two products, a high-end product and a low-end product. But at a certain point, it's really going to be up to you all to figure out the value of those products in terms of measuring engagement. If somebody buys a high-end product, is it necessarily more in points on a lead scoring scale than if they bought a low-end product? And does each product have to have its own score? Are there categories of products? Those are all things that you all are going to have to sort of figure out for yourselves, but we try to give you a range here for those products, at least as a point of departure. Subscription renewals, we assign 30 points. Participating in a physical event, 30 points as well. Webinar participation, 20 points. And again, those two webinar and physical event participation points, obviously it's a bit of a heavier lift to go to a physical event. That's why we assign more points to that. For registering for either a webinar or a physical event, we assign 15 points. And this next one all gets very interesting with the website visits, because if you think about your website, there's many different types of pages on your website, and not all of them have equal value in terms of someone's expression of interest by visiting that page. So if someone visits and I skipped one here, it's actually, if you look up about the fourth bullet from the bottom, we have a website visit, and that's the pricing page. Now, if someone visits your pricing page, obviously that's a very strong expression of interest. We assign 20 points to that. On this bottom one, someone visits a product page. That we assign 15 points to. And the next one we look at in the next column is if someone visits your thought leadership page or your blog. It's great that they visited, it's great that they're engaged, but just because someone clicks on a blog post doesn't necessarily mean that they're raising their hand because they're interested in buying something from you. So we felt that that was worth fewer points than visiting a product page or a pricing page. For clicking an email, we give 10 points. Social interactions, this is a very key one and a little bit more complex. As many of you know, there are services out there that can match social handles with email addresses. If you have that capability, when someone retweets your post or likes or makes a comment, we can score that. It can only be done if that connection is made between the handle and the email address, because otherwise people clicking on that link from Twitter, for example, we don't know who they are because it's a one-to-many relationship. With email, it's a one-to-one relationship. We know if somebody clicks a link who it is. Social is fundamentally different in that sense, so you need to have that association between the social handle and the email address. Opens, interesting one as well. When we started our own lead scoring campaign, we assigned that 5 points. One thing we saw very early off the bat was that there are anomalies on there that are meaningful. So, for example, there's certain spam filters out there that opens every single email and clicks every single link. So that obviously is not really a live person doing that, so that shouldn't count. The other sort of nuance there are those preview panes. If an email is opened in a preview pane, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person who received it saw it, but it is scored as an open. So we reduced ours from 5 points to 2 points. Certain people will assign negative points if someone doesn't attend an event, a webinar or a physical event. We felt that it was sort of neutral, particularly in the case of the webinar, so we kept that at 0. But the point is that you can do negative points with lead scoring. And this last item here is a very good example of where that would come into play. If somebody goes into your website and they go to the career page, they're not interested in buying anything from you. They're interested in a job with your organization. That should deduct points from their lead score so that you're not spending your resources and salespeople's time chasing people who are only looking for a job at your organization. Next, please. So just from some closing remarks, lead scoring is really important. Again, it can tell you how much someone's interested, and that's something that everybody's very interested in. But if you could have the highest lead score in the world, and if that person works at some mom and pop shop that can't afford your product, then the high lead score doesn't matter at all. And in fact, it's a bad thing, because if you don't have another score there that assesses the organization that person works for, what we call an account score, you could spend a lot of time chasing very engaged people who could never afford your product. So you should really think about those situations where you need to sort of measure the importance and the revenues or the employees or whatever your metric is for an organization that can actually pay for the product that you're seeking to sell. And if you're, again, if you're serious about lead scoring, if you're serious about sending relevant content and doing things the way that marketing has to be done now and in the future, then marketing automation is an inevitable sort of purchase. And the main piece of advice that I would impart to everybody here is that there are a lot of good companies out there, and so a lot of those companies are better at sales than they are at the actual development. It's all about ease of use. If you bring on something that is really slick but too big and too complex to use, it's bad you're throwing money away, but the worst part of it is that you're not going to get things done that need to get done because the adoption is going to be so low. So ease of use is a premium. And remember, when you embark on this path, eating the elephant one bite at a time, if you take one step at a time and you're strategic about it, you will get there, and there will be a very big payoff for you. So with that, I will complete my remarks and send it back to Lorna, I think.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you very much for that, Tom. That was very insightful. And we will have time at the end of the presentations for Q&A, and at that time you can direct them specifically to Tom or Kevin or Jacob at that point. So our next speakers are Kevin Novak and Jacob Perry. Kevin is the founder and CEO of 2040 Digital. He has spent nearly 2 decades helping organizations find their place in the digital world and has earned 5 Webby Awards. As Vice President of New Business Development and Digital Strategies for the American Institute of Architects, he built AIA's digital strategy and led product and partnership development to maximize existing revenue streams and build new ones. As the Chief Digital Officer and Director of Education Outreach at the Library of Congress, he built a centralized digital division to bring the library's main disparate websites into a cohesive experience and led several other key library initiatives. He has chaired working groups and currently serves on the board of directors of both Connectiv and SIIA, and he is also an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland. And Jacob Perry is going to be joining him. He had a great case study, which I was fortunate enough to see earlier this week at the BIMS conference. Jacob is the database marketing manager for Business Valuation Resources. Jacob has been a driving force behind BVR's analytics for nearly 5 years and was recently an Emerging Leader Award finalist, recognizing the next generation of executives shaping the future of the B2B media and information industry. He has kept BVR at the forefront of online marketing and sales technologies with the successful implementation and adoption of marketing automation and CRM systems. Jacob's work with BVR's management team on reporting and manages key performance indicators and analytics dashboards, which bring together key customer data from a multitude of sources, empowering executives to make informed decisions. So Kevin, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Lorna, very much. Matt, can you advance to slide 6, the new mechanics of lead generation, please? Thank you. As the Audience Marketing Group has dealt with over the past couple of years, a better understanding of digital analytics for their basic websites, along with new features and publications that are being introduced, the concept of marketing automation adds a whole new layer to the need to understand overall digital analytics as tied to audience development. Where marketing automation that Tom spoke to works best is where, as Joanne Persico has shared with the group many times, the concept of the named user. Where automation as well is now impacting all of you, particularly related to the web, is the new tracking mechanisms and capture mechanisms in order to capture that named user, create information about them, and have them further move along in the funnel. Those key elements are, in essence, the offer, as Tom talked about with the variety of downloads and ebooks. There is the calls to action, which are actually coded URLs to have that recording of that data back into the customer file. There are landing pages, which are also smart pages to track the variety of behaviors and collect information. And ultimately, no marketing automation or lead scoring program can work well without capturing more and more information on forms. Next, Matt. That leads to also new mechanics around the concept of lead scoring, particularly building off the forms and calls to action. The move is to create the right time and right moment in a problem-to-solution structure, where workflows, the input of information, capturing people's behaviors, and then delivering actions or responding to those actions are taking place. Next. So there are two types of lead scoring. One is manual, as Tom hit on, and I'll cover some of this information later on in the presentation. It focuses on using the demographic information, the firmographic information, and the overall behavioral information. It provides you the opportunity, if you are indeed setting this manually within a marketing automation system, to set the amount of points to round up to a total number. An organization can set that at 100. It could set that at 1,000 based on agreement between the marketing and sales team or the overall strategy for the organization. The QLR, or quality lead range, can be set within a certain range. On the other side is automatic, and as Tom mentioned, that is being coded as predictive. It is driven by your past customer data. It integrates demographic and behavioral information together. It uses weights calculated by a model, particularly designated by a system. The automatic process can use up to over 200 customer properties and actions. Both manual and automatic can generate reports, and I'll show a few snapshots of those in a few moments. Next, Matt. So I want to cover, before I move forward, the concept of attribution. Attribution really does correlate back to events or touch points that contribute in some manner to a desired outcome. There are defined processes which allow those attributes to be scored, and again, those values assigned. One piece of advice that I'd strongly put forward to anyone who is considering lead scoring for an organization, and particularly defining and using a marketing automation platform tied as infrastructure underneath their current digital representations, is that please do not copy another's model. These things, the attributes, the definition, and the scoring are very particular to an organization, its goals, the unique products that it may offer, and as Tom mentioned several times, what the segmentation and the targets of an organization are trying to go after. Next, Matt. All right. So as Tom talked a lot about implicit, I want to cover explicit because there are two different sets of attributes that you should consider in any scoring model. On the implicit side, those are related to those action and behaviors down to attending a physical event or participating in a physical conference. On the explicit side, this really relates to who this person is, what their role is in the organization, what the industry is, the number of employees, and particularly the location. Next, Matt. So all of these attributes can be brought together to create the lead scoring model. So how do you do this? It's important to have the sales team input. It's important, and as many of you know and are responsible for reporting in your organization on engagement analytics and digital analytics, those come into play. Your prior customer behaviors also come into play. Those need to be correlated back to the company goals and priorities. Again, as Tom mentioned, the use of personas and segmentations along with lists are critically important because not all of your groups of customers are similar, so you may have different lead scoring models for each of the different segments. Next, Matt. All right. So to go into a couple of the more explicit types of attributes, which aren't tied specifically to web behavior or email behavior, you could score against company revenue or their budget. Where do you get this information? Back to the forums and the landing pages, you could ask for that information from that actual person. You can buy a list that hopefully will have that information on it. Based on title, based on location, and based on company, you could actually make a guess based on what you know about the company's revenue. In this regard, a salesperson probably wants to work the leads with the highest budgets first. So they may result in a higher score within the lead scoring model related to that particular person. Likewise, the lead below a certain budget threshold may require a negative score and not a person who you want to hand over to the sales or marketing team. Next, Matt. All right. Next could be organization size and type, particular to who the organization is focused on in the industry. It could be targeted towards specifically B2B organizations, B2C organizations. As Tom mentioned, some of us spend our time in the association space, which is really business to professional. You also need to determine what size of business that you're looking to target and also score. That could be a small business, and therefore you would give them an amount of positive points. If you are not focused on large organizations, you could actually give them lower points if they're a large organization. Next. Next, and this is critically important, location. If you're only selling to a certain geographic location, if you only want a certain deal released in a certain location, you want to ensure that you are using the location information you have and assigning a negative or positive attribute score to that. Case in point, if anyone falls out of the city, state, zip code, or country of your target group, then you would give them a negative lead score. Sorry. I think we all came back from BIMS with a little cold. Next, Matt. Next is event attendance. Tom mentioned this. This is highly important. Most marketing automation systems allow this information to be brought in as an offline source. That offline source information can be applied to the overall scoring models that you have per segment in the system. Next. Next is the off-website email type events. Most digital analytics are recording the information directly on your website. Many marketing automation platforms as well are recording any visits to a landing page, any clicks on a link, and any forms that may be filled out. Using tracking cookies, you can bring in and understand where that group of people or that person was prior to coming to your website and also track them in what they're doing after. This most directly relates to social media, where you're using that cookie to see if they are actually engaging with you in some way, or they're promoting you with some way, or they are taking some preset action that you want to have included within the lead score model. Next. All right. Next is lead source. As many of you know, you are tracking your traffic as to where it's coming from before it gets to your web properties. If someone is coming from Facebook and the organization feels that Facebook traffic is valuable and record to the named user, you can apply points to that. If it's coming in off a campaign or organic search, you can assign those higher rates and apply that to the model. Next. All right. So I want to give you a couple of examples that this is not overly complex to do. This particular example is HubSpot's manual scoring model. You see on the left you have positive attributes. On the right you have negative attributes. Based on the total score that the organization agrees that they want to move forward with, you can use on the left, you'll see a 20. Within that 20, you can set the numeric value to that particular attribute. You can also apply a workflow where if property division contains California, and this directly relates to the company file and this person, if this person is over an age or under an age, and you can keep adding in positive attributes to get as complex with this as you need to be. Right beneath that is the industry. This one happens to be demonstrating hospital and healthcare. Next would be what they interacted with on the website. Those are all positive attributes. On the right are the negative attributes. You can make that be if someone has not visited the website within a month, someone has not attended a physical event within the last 6 months, you can negate those. Next, Matt. All right. Again, to show you that this is always based on the information that may be in your current systems or that you're pulling in via Google Analytics or other sources. On the left-hand side are positive attributes. They can come from your contact property, company property, which most likely are your explicit attributes. Also, form submission, email page views, which are your implicit elements. Again, back to the previous slide, you can have positive attributes and also have similar ones within the negative attributes. Next, Matt. All right. So the models roll up and report a score. This is showing how a predictive model works. Very easy recommendations. This is showing your contact distribution within a certain segment. It has an overall score, which was a total of 51. And it's showing you here that 6% of your contacts are ones that you should be sharing with your sales team. The middle, 64%, is making a recommendation based on a model for you that you should be engaging them with some marketing to move them further along into the funnel to make them a more engaged prospect, which could actually then translate them and move them up along in the funnel to your salespeople. The bottom 29% are those that are not interacting with you very much and may not be qualified leads for the sales team to actually reach out to. Next, Matt. All right. Again, both manual and predictive models will allow you to do a lot of data visualization based on the scoring. So if you look at the top of the pie chart, you'll see social engagement. Next to that is spam. One of the great values of marketing automation is it is allowing you to understand that this is actually qualified traffic. It will eliminate and report out the amount of spam/invalid traffic that you may be getting through your processes. The blue is the demographical information that you have scored via the manual model or predictive model. Next, in the purple, is the email engagement. And I'll show how that breaks out in a moment. In the light green tends to be the behaviors, and those are things that you preset, whether someone has clicked off, they have the time on site, they have read an article, or they have interacted with your website in some way. Next, Matt. All right. So it can also be broken out in this way, and via a model you can set the criteria for this particular report. This is demonstrating to you the most influential attributes. And you'll see their emails opened is 1 to 3, emails delivered is 1 to 3. The type of phone number is fixed line or mobile. And it is tested, the phone number is valid. That gives some efficiencies to the salesperson and allows that particular lead to move further along in the process. The negative attributes below, keyword switching matching score of last name, the no-nonsense score of last name, and then lastly, original source is offline source. That particular thing is where your entire information that you have about someone is something that you've gotten from a list or someone has manually inputted, and that particular lead has not taken any action with you digitally or in any other way. So there are many different ways that the model can report out information to you to help you with reporting overall analytics, but also helping you help marketing and sales move these leads further along in the process. Next, Matt. All right. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jacob to give a really, really good case study. I have co-presented with his boss, Lisa, and they have just a really great story to tell.
All right, thank you, Kevin. And I would just like to say that so this is kind of just a real-life example of how all that stuff really does work. So hopefully this just reinforces that everything that you guys have just said is completely true. So just to give you a little bit of context, back in 2010, Business Valuation Resources had, I believe we were probably in the upper 20s or close to 30 employees, and we did not have a CRM or a marketing automation platform. And I bet you there's a lot of people who are probably at this point right now. We had a standalone email platform, so our marketing department used that to send out blast emails and segmented emails. We had a little bit of reporting we could do out of that, but the key there was that we couldn't really automate anything. There was no lead nurturing capability, or at least not automatic. We were sort of in the spot where we had to figure out who took action on the email and then pick up that list of people and drop them into the next step of the process. And there's also no integration with our other systems, so that was a challenge that presented for us. We were providing leads to our sales team via Excel spreadsheets, and we really didn't have any detailed pipeline reporting or lead effectiveness reporting. We didn't know, what lead sources were converting better than others, what sales were coming out of those lead sources. All that reporting took a lot of manual effort, and none of it was happening automatically, and it wasn't transparent to the whole company. So in 2013, we implemented our CRM, which we're using Salesforce, and that CRM gave us a ton of new capabilities with real-time reporting, dashboards, which are summaries of reports that our executives could see that really sort of digested all that huge data into real visual reports for them. We knew what was going on with our pipeline, and one of the huge keys was all of our teams at Business Valuation Resources were now suddenly on the same page. We were all looking at the same reports, the same dashboards, working towards the same goals. It also made our campaigns run a lot more efficiently because we could automate a lot of that effort now. So in 2014, we implemented a marketing automation platform. We're currently using Pardot, but other ones that have come up have been HubSpot. There's lots of other real reputable companies. It's probably important to mention that a lot of these concepts that I'm going to be talking about and that we've talked about would carry between all those platforms. They all have essentially the same, more or less, capabilities. I would say when it comes to lead scoring, or certainly all the lead scoring model that I will cover in just a second here would be covered by all those major platforms. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is Business Valuation Resources' current day lead scoring model. And you'll notice right away some striking similarities to some of the lead scoring models that you saw in both Kevin and Tom's presentations. It's important to note that I think it's really important to look at your lead scoring model is evolving. It's something that could change from week to week or month to month or year to year as you learn new things about your audience and gain new capabilities and resources with your staff. So we originally, I believe it was one of Kevin's slides, also broke down the lead scoring model into different categories. So initially we struggled a little bit with it felt like we were almost kind of arbitrarily trying to assign points to different activities, and it really helped to break it down into 4 different categories: critical, important, influencing, and bad behavior, and assign kind of a score range for each of those categories. So now suddenly, instead of trying to compare one activity to 15 different activities on the list, you're first choosing which category is that going to be influencing behavior, or is that going to be an important behavior or a critical behavior, and you're only having to compare it to that smaller sub-list of activities when you're determining the score. I forget who it was, but in a previous slide we talked about the range of the scoring, and we've essentially adopted the same practice in terms of the 15 kind of being that midpoint, as you can see on the chart there. Because I feel like that kind of the 1 to 100 is a scale that we're all familiar and comfortable with. And in terms of how we decided what activities fell into what categories and what score we assigned to them, the key there was working with the audience who is actually going to be utilizing that score primarily. So for us, that's our sales team. And the marketing team is the team that developed the model. And so it was really key for us to work very closely with our sales team and talk to them about, from your point of view, what activities would you consider to be critical, because you're familiar with, you talk to people on the phone and you know when people are sales ready. What activities would you consider to be critical, important, or influencing somebody as far as being sales ready? So we worked with them really closely, and I would say that some of these activities, especially seeing some of those previous slides reinforces this. Whereas report sample downloads for us might be a critical activity and worth 30 points, that may not be critical to another company and may fall into the influencing category. So I think Kevin mentioned it's really important to not take this exact model and copy it for your company, but rather look at it as a general structure to base your scoring models on. So we employ quite a variety of different tools to actually trigger the scoring within our automation platform. So we use redirects, forms, page actions, automation rules, and that kind of differs between the different platforms on which tools you would utilize potentially to get that scoring. And one last point on this model that was mentioned in a previous slide, but just to reinforce it, it is really important to have negative scoring. And for us, the reason why we do that, primarily it's a timing thing. So you can see at the bottom of the chart, we take off points if you opt out of an email. But the last two items are if there's no activity in the system for 90 days, and then again for 180 days. 90 days is a little bit of a negative, but if a prospect has not, or contact has not taken any kind of engagement, meaning they haven't clicked on an email, they haven't been to our website, anything like that, for 6 months or 180 days, at that point that score, whatever score they had, is essentially useless to our sales team. So we've decided at that point their score should be reset back to 0. Looking further up on the chart, you can also see that one of the things you can get a score for is, I'm looking for it on here, the prospect was created or contact, and depending on what your terminology is, depending on what platform you use, was created in the last 90 days. So our sales team told us, I would be interested in leads people who have engaged within the last 20 days. I'd rather see those above people who are older than that. So we've actually decided, kind of on the similar timing, to give people a better score because they have engaged more recently. But you can see down below, once it hits over 90 days, they lose that score. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. So current day, what that's done for us, and there's some statistics that I gave in my presentation in bins that I'll talk about really quick that aren't on this slide, but our marketing automation platform has really done a lot to enable us to support expansion of our sales team and drive lead generation. We in the first 6 months of using a marketing automation platform, we're able to deliver 166% more leads than prior. And then current day, we are now at 200, I believe it was about 260% of the leads that we were able to generate before we had a marketing automation platform. And that's after going on, so it's been over 2 years, going on 3 years of utilizing that. So that's pretty huge for us. I mean, that supports growth of our sales team and our marketing team, because we know by our reporting that we have now, more leads, we know exactly how many conversions that's going to lead to and exactly what revenue that's going to lead to. So we can justify that expansion of the teams that way pretty easily. So we've also seen improved email deliverability. We went from our blast emails, so emails that we were sending out to entire lists that weren't super segmented. Prior to our marketing automation platform, we were seeing about 9% open rates or 12% on a good email. And we're now seeing between 14 and 18% open rates, which we'd love to see better than that, but that's at least a big improvement. And our segmented emails went from about 25%, segmented meaning we know exactly who these people are. We're sending them specifically to our CPA list, people who have CPA in their job title, for example. We went from about 25% open rates to about 40 to 60%, depending on the email. So that was a pretty huge improvement, because we saw as the open rates increased, so did the click-through rates and so did the sales. Lead scoring was a huge, as we know, lead scoring was a huge capability, because now suddenly our sales team who uses that lead score can, as they're working campaigns, can prioritize who they're contacting, but also they can see that activity and what's driving that score very transparently as they're working those leads. So, and that kind of covers the next point as well, prospect, customer engagement, visibility. So standardized prospect customer onboarding programs. We were also able to utilize our marketing automation platform and within that the scoring to actually, as we brought on new customers for products, one of the feedback we received at renewal time was that they felt like they didn't have great customer service and that they weren't seeing a lot of value outside of that product other than when they needed to use it, but all that in between time, they weren't hearing from us and nothing was keeping them engaged. So we actually utilized the marketing automation platform and the scoring to both assess, both to kind of keep them engaged, provide more value for their product, send them content related to that product, but also determine risk of not renewing that product through engagement activity tracking. And then also, marketing automation platform allows us to provide consistent branding across marketing and sales. And last but not least, this is a huge key point, is that we see far better collaboration between our sales and marketing team. We're working together towards the same goals. As I mentioned earlier, we're looking at the same reports. And we have a common understanding of what a qualified lead means to both the sales and the marketing team. We're not making assumptions in marketing of what a qualified lead means to the sales team, and we know which based on our analytics, we know which leads work and which ones don't. But we've also developed service level agreements between our teams, so we know what to expect from each other. And with that, I believe if we advance to the next slide, I'll be passing it back off to Kevin.
And thank you, Jacob, very much. I know we're out of time. When Matt sends out this presentation, Lisa Mickenthorpe from BBR and I, when we presented this at SIIA last month, have compiled a list of tips, tricks, and lessons learned. We hope that you find those helpful as you make this consideration as Tom well mentioned, this is not necessarily an option for any organization anymore. It's really an imperative as more and more organizations become smarter in collecting data and trying to identify the right customer in the right moment, which ultimately produces revenue back to the organization. With that, I'll turn it back over to Matt and Lorna to manage any questions.
Thanks, Kevin. We definitely have a couple minutes for Q&A. Lorna, any questions, any observations you have?
I have a question. It's Melianthe. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
go ahead.
I just unmute. So with collecting all of these different data points that you're going to use for the scoring, I mean, obviously some of them are very obviously going to be into your platform, your audience platform. But are some pain points in making sure everything's tagged correctly? How does that aspect of it work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Quality of data is key, and as far as my point in the beginning about known users, having that name, that demographical information, and even firmographic information, and ensuring that is as accurate as it possibly can be, is very important, or else it will have an impact on your model, and ultimately then those leads that you're passing to sales or marketing.
Mm-hmm. And on a related note, do you count each, let's say you have everything set up correctly, and then there are individuals who take that same action, which you're counting as a positive multiple times, like they, watch a webinar or they look at a price page. Do you count it more than once, or is the one time as many points as they get?
Yeah, as Jacob well hit, there are usually time frames associated with those captured behaviors. Mm-hmm. And those could be, and an important point, and Jacob hit on this, and I know he and I talked about this while we were at BIMS, is these models are going to change all the time. A lead this week may not rate the same the next week based on that deterioration of activity. And that's something that an audience development professional needs to understand, particularly if they're going to be the front point from this process, to ensure that the salespeople are understanding where those deterioration points are going to occur.
Right. So the score is relative to the particular goal that you have on a campaign or within a certain time frame. Got it.
Yes, it can be. It can be. And if there are multiple scoring, and I'll turn this over to Jacob in a second, if there are multiple scoring models an organization is using, and they are focused on campaigns, or they're focused on an overall score, or even a segment or a subsegment within segments, it's important that people do understand how each of those individual models are working and what they're going to report out.
Great. Well, this whole presentation was extremely helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Jacob, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, very generally speaking, at BVR for us, we do track multiple engagements, multiple of the same engagements. So let's say somebody attends 5 webinars and it's worth 20 points. We do give them, 100 points total, because for us, that's a signal of level of engagement. So somebody who attends 5 webinars, in our opinion, would be worth more than somebody who's only attended 1. Mm-hmm. So the system does track those separate but same engagements over time, like Kevin mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else have any further questions? Okay, well, I think since we're out of time, maybe we should just call it a day. And thank you, Tom and Kevin and Jacob, so much for joining us and sharing your expertise with us. We very much appreciate it. So, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to our speakers, and thank you to Lorna for pulling this together. As Tony said in the beginning, I will be sending out a recording, an archive of this presentation. You can get the decks as well. If you have any follow-up questions for each individual speaker, just let me know, and I'll be happy to connect you. Otherwise, thanks, everybody, and I hope you enjoy your weekend.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.